Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True of My Chest and it's by user Chicken Wing Priest. Broke up with my girlfriend over tattoos. She no longer agrees with our breakup. Nuts. I want to preface this with a disclaimer that there is nothing wrong with having tattoos if you want and like them. They aren't my thing. Please don't take this as a condemnation of tattoos or the people that get them as a whole. So, my ex and I were together about a year. Early on in the relationship, she had mentioned wanting to get some tattoos. I told her she had every right to do so since it's her body, but I find tattoos very unattractive and I would likely break up if she went through with it. It became a small fight and she was cold and passive-aggressive about it for a few days, but eventually she said she understood and would not be getting the tattoos done. Fast forward to about 2 months ago, and she makes another attempt to get me on board with tattoos. I reiterate my stance and tell her again she can do it, but I won't stick around if she does. I went out of town to visit my cousin for a week and came home to her with a partial tattoo sleeve done. Her arm was basically one big scab. I ask her what's going on and she just nonchalantly says her and her best friend had talked and agreed I was being unreasonable, so she went ahead and used my time out of town to get it done so I wouldn't be around to be a buzzkill about it. She said she got as much as the guy was willing to do in one sitting inked, and once she was healed, she planned to get it extended. The tattoo was already a deal breaker for me, but the blatant disrespect and casual way she was implying my opinion didn't matter broke my feelings for her right there. We fought and eventually she just told me to get the hell out and locked herself in the bathroom. Thank God she did this when she did, because I was close to not renewing my lease at my apartment and moving in with her. I packed my crap up and left while she crap talked me to her best friend on the phone. Dropped her stuff off from my place the next day. She told me I was making a huge mistake and throwing a good thing away for petty reasons. I just handed her the bag and left. That was weeks ago. Didn't hear from her until today. She called me. Here's a brief summary of the call. She goes, "Okay, the petty drama has run its course. You can move back in and move on, okay?" And I tell her, no, we are broken up. It's over permanently. I don't want to get back together. And she goes, "We aren't getting back together. This was just a spat that got out of hand. You freaked out and left in a huff. I know you're just too proud to admit you're wrong, so we'll just call it even and you can come back." So I said, no, I told you repeatedly that tattoos are a deal breaker. You did it anyway and then disrespected me on top of that with the way you went about it. We're done. You can move on now. Find a guy that finds your new ink attractive, because I find it repulsive and won't be able to look at you or that arm again. The conversation goes in circles for a bit before I hang up. Then she tries sending me some nudes in an attempt to seduce me, but her body does nothing for me now and her sleeve was visible, which even after it healed was gross and unflattering. Told her I deleted them and to leave me alone. Blocked. She then messaged me on Snap saying she never agreed to a breakup and I owed her a conversation face to face if I wanted to end things. Blocked again. I know it's bad form to be a guy calling his ex crazy, but this girl is nuts. Not the a-hole OP. You set a clear boundary. Tattoos are a deal breaker. And yes, she was absolutely free to get them, just like you're absolutely free to end the relationship. The way she went about it, well, that just solidified that you guys won't work together. Her logic is ridiculous. She did it when you weren't there so you wouldn't be a buzzkill about it, but then she expected you to just accept it when you got back? I wouldn't call her crazy, but definitely not smart either. What you guys had is not a spat, it was deliberate disrespect, and now she's acting like you're overreacting for sticking to what you already told her would end the relationship. You don't owe her a face-to-face or a second chance. She made her choice, you made yours. She's just mad she didn't get to control both. Block and move on. You're not the problem here, OP. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Matromo says, it's a bit weird to go from considering a tattoo to a complete sleeve. I could understand her thinking of we will get back together had she some small tattoo on her ankle or something. I know I am definitely older than OP and his ex, but I've seen a few of these posts about one side not accepting or agreeing to a breakup. When did that become an option? Even when people said a breakup was mutual, it never really was, but now apparently they have to be? And OP responds, her original plan was a bunch of smaller tattoos around her body, one on each ankle, shoulder, and one on her lower back. Now she has a partial sleeve with plans to get the rest done over the next year or so. She didn't even do any of the other ones she said she wanted initially. GNUP Terry says, I don't understand your point of view regarding tattoos, but she's delusional. With the way she handled this, there was no way the relationship would work out long term, so it's best that it ended here. And OP responds, it's just a preference, nothing too deep here, just a turn off for me. I don't think I'm wrong in any way for having this preference. And Akimbo Slice 1 says, I'm not much of a tattoo person either and wouldn't really be into it. That being said, I'm thinking you guys really didn't have as much in common as you initially thought. I think the bigger deal breaker was how she got as much as she could done while you were out of town. A sleeve is pretty hardcore compared to a simple tramp stamp. I see her testing other red lines in the future and jumping them to see how you would react. You likely dodged future incompatibility. And Dopey respond, the thing is, lots of the other things changed that I didn't like that I was okay with because I did like her and we did have lots in common. People are in this thread acting like I never cared about her and was looking for an out, but I wasn't. She gained weight after telling me she'd leave me if I ever put on weight, and I never said a word. Still found her beautiful and wanted to be with her. Same thing when she kept changing her hair to colors I didn't like. I was supportive because I cared about her. The tattoo was one of very few hard lines I had in the relationship and the only one that was related to physical appearance. Combine that with the disrespect she'd shown me and the way she handled all this, and it killed my feelings for her, not because of the tattoo. If she told me she was getting that tattoo and put that ultimatum out there, I'd have left but would have respected her decision and still cared about her. Would have tried to stay friends too if at all possible, but not now after everything she's done. Opie's edit. This was great. Sub really is great for getting things off your chest. Sub name and whatnot. Had a lot of fun reading responses, and while I didn't need validation to know what I did was right, I still appreciate the supportive folks. The negative ones accusing me of being shallow, controlling, weird, and all sorts of other things because I have a preference were fun too. Didn't change my mind one bit, but I'm glad you guys were able to get those things off your chest as well. Well, the top comments in the community agreed that OP has a right to end the relationship because it was a boundary. Apparently, some people didn't like that. But as OP pointed out, the sub is to get things off your chest. In any case, we have an update, so let's move on with that to see how this story ends. I came here a week ago to vent about a strange situation with my ex getting a tattoo, and it resulted in us breaking up. Weeks later, she acted like our breakup was just a spat and that I was being unreasonable. I told her we were broken up permanently and blocked her. She then tried to message me on other platforms demanding a face-to-face meeting because she never agreed to the breakup. In the end, the tattoo was a secondary cause of our breakup in my mind. She disregarded what we'd spoken and agreed about early on in the relationship. When I didn't give her the supportive response she wanted, she proceeded to belittle me and insult me, then kicked me out of her home, which we were close to having me move into full time. She then locked herself in the bathroom and loudly insulted me while on the phone with her best friend, whom had been the one to convince her to get the tattoo while I was out of town. At that point, we were done. I took my stuff back to my place and brought her stuff from mine back to hers. So, she showed up at my place last night with a bag full of my bathroom stuff from her place. Just a bottle of body wash and a few other things. She asked to come in and talk, but I stepped outside and we talked out front where the cameras could see. She asked if I was really breaking up with her over a tattoo, and I reiterated that it was about more than that tattoo at this point and that I wasn't breaking up with her. I already broke up with her weeks ago. She tried to argue with me that our relationship was stronger than that, but I told her that it wasn't. That while I was comfortable with her, this whole incident made me realize I wasn't happy with her. Her treating me poorly was the wake-up call we both needed to go our separate ways and find people we could truly be happy with. She kept trying to argue that this was crazy and I was throwing a good thing away. I told her that I wish she'd just gotten the tattoo when we started dating. We could have broken up and just be friends. She said she'd considered it, but decided she'd rather be with me than get the tattoo, so she lied to me when she said she was okay not getting one. Then, when I went on my trip, her best friend convinced her to get it and claimed I'd get over it and stick around. The guy that did the first part of her sleeve was an old friend with benefits of hers and agreed to do it for a discount. The conversation sort of went in circles for a bit before she tossed the bag at me and left crying, yelling, "Fine, we're effing over then." So that's that. She showed up at my place like a lot of people predicted, but no stabby stabs or anything. Friends told me she made a bunch of vague posts about heartbreak on social media, but I haven't seen any of it. Regardless of how things went down, I hope she heals and finds herself someone who can be more supportive of her choices than I was. Thanks to those people who offered me support for my decision, and to everyone calling me shallow, controlling, and weird for my stance on tattoos, I gotta say, I had a blast reading those comments. Absolutely hilarious. Well, Opie, it's a good thing that things didn't escalate and that you had that conversation in the view of cameras just in case, but apparently she now agrees to your breakup. So here's wishing you the best in the future, Opie. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Mama Loves. Am I the a-hole for making a joke about bread? I, 40 female, made a loaf of white bread the other day. I've never been much of a cook, so I was pretty proud of myself. I FaceTimed my son, 22 male, to show him my success. For a little backstory, my son's wife makes bread as a hobby. Sourdough to be specific. I don't like sourdough. The starter freaks me out and I think it looks nasty and sourdough is just too tough to enjoy. She posts it when she makes it. My son will post pictures of the loaves she makes when she draws a design on it and stuff. Since he seems so interested in the bread she makes, I figured she may want to see the beauty I made. So, as I'm FaceTiming him, I show him the bread. We talk for a moment, my son and I have always joked together, so I made a joke that my bread was probably better than his wife's bread. I made the joke because he knows that I prefer white bread to sourdough. He didn't say anything about the joke, so I figured it just didn't land. I talked to him a bit more, but he got busy doing other things, so I said bye and hung up. Later, he texted me and said that he didn't like my joke from earlier and he would prefer I didn't try to put down others. I explained that I wasn't putting anyone down and that the joke was about how I don't like sourdough. He said it was odd for me to specify his wife in the joke if I wasn't joking about her, and I explained that it was because all she makes is sourdough. He kept going with it being a strange comment and told me to not specify his wife in jokes again. At that point, I got a weird feeling, so I asked if it was actually him messaging me or if his wife has his phone. Then he blew up on me. He said I was acting like an a-hole and that if I was going to keep acting that way, he didn't want me to message him anymore. I still do think it was his wife messaging me, if I'm being completely honest. And if it wasn't, I think he is totally overreacting. Now he, or she, has his sisters in on it. My oldest daughter even said, "It is weird that you want to make bread all of a sudden when you barely cook." Am I really being an a-hole because I made a joke about how I don't like sourdough bread? Yeah, OP, you're the a-hole, not for baking bread, but for turning it into a competition you pretended was a joke. You don't usually cook, but you suddenly bake bread, FaceTime your son who clearly supports his wife baking, and say your bread is probably better than hers. That's not a harmless joke, it's a passive-aggressive dig. Your son called you out, and instead of owning it, you doubled down and accused his wife of texting you. That's deflection, not honesty. This whole thing was about you wanting the same attention your son gives his wife. You crossed a line, own it. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Typo in Creation says, "You're the a-hole. Why make the comparison in the first place? Putting someone down isn't really a joke, it's just being mean and putting him in a tough spot between his mom and his wife." He reacted well and maturely ignoring it and then asking you not to do it again. Saying your wife's bread is bad isn't a joke about not liking sourdough bread, it's a statement that you think his wife's baking is crap. Assuming that your own son can't be protective of his wife and this must be her is also extremely disrespectful to her again. So yes, you've repeatedly disrespected your own son and his wife, who've both done absolutely nothing to deserve this in this story. Girl literally just bakes bread. Tall Candy 9061 says, "Why are you in competition with your son's wife? If you aren't, why didn't you just apologize when he told you he was upset at the joke? You doubled down. You're the a-hole." Sugar Weasel says, "You're the a-hole. Tell me you're a toxic boy mom who's jealous of your daughter-in-law and resent her for stealing your son without telling me that you're a toxic boy mom who's jealous of your daughter-in-law and resents her for stealing your son." Something tells me this is not the first time you've made a comment like this, directly comparing yourself to your son's wife and concluding you are better and then frantically trying to justify how you didn't mean it like that. I bet your son is sick of his mother putting down his wife like this and trying to compete with her. Furthermore, doubling down on your bad behavior by making the accusation of his wife being the one texting you makes you the a-hole even more, unless you are leaving out vital information that his wife has a habit of being sensitive, controlling, manipulative, and texting you from his phone claiming to be him. It is pretty clear you are not only in the wrong, but desperate to act like you aren't. I suppose you can take solace in knowing that despite your toxicity, you somehow raised a son who shows his wife basic respect and is willing to stand up for her when appropriate, so kudos for that, I guess. Well, the community just agrees that OP was absolutely the a-hole in this situation and told her so in no uncertain terms. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I made a post asking if I was the a-hole over a distasteful joke I made regarding my son's wife bread and comparing it to mine. In making the joke, I was referring to thinking my bread was better than hers because I made white and she regularly bakes sourdough, which I do not like. When making that post, I was hurt by the argument that my son and I had over this joke, so I came here to try and prove a point, and that was not right. I posted here to try and prove that others could see that my joke was about how I like white bread instead of sourdough, and not that I was trying to put down his wife to raise myself back up. When others very clearly sided with my son on the issue and called me the a-hole, I got defensive. I told myself that people were not listening to me and that they didn't understand when I was the one who didn't understand. The way I worded my joke absolutely did sound like I was trying to put down his wife, even if that wasn't what I meant to do. At the end of the day, that is what happened. I truly don't know that his wife was messaging me from his phone, and even if she was, so be it. Clearly, he would have to allow that, and if she did such a thing and he didn't allow that, then that is a bridge they will cross on their own. But at the end of the day, I felt it was her speaking to me because I didn't want to believe that the son who used to joke along with me was disagreeing with the joke I had made. I made a phone call to my son earlier to apologize. I admitted that my wording came across as if I were putting his wife down when that was not my goal, and for that, I was very sorry. While his wife and I have our differences, I do love her. I can't allow my emotions to get the best of me, and that is where my head was yesterday when posting. She is a wonderful wife, and I am very happy my son has her in his life. She's supported him in great ways, and that always makes me happy to see. While I stick by not having an outright issue with his wife, I see that my wording has come across that way multiple times. Maybe I do have a subconscious issue with the jealousy that I am not even realizing. From here, I hope to figure those things out and better myself. I want nothing more than to be better for my children and their current and future spouses in the case of my daughters. Well, OP, I think you're making a step in the right direction. You acknowledged what you did was wrong and you apologized to your son. As I said, I think it's a good start. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.